have an agenda tonight because I'd like you guys to kind of get where you want to go tonight. I do have a few things to tell you about and present. First off, hope you all had a nice holiday. Could have been a little nicer where I was, but that's okay. I have given you two matrices. These are revised matrices. They're pretty much the same. There might be a couple little typo things, but we took another look at the costs, and we got a little more conservative. Added, just took a quick look at them and added some things in there, just to make sure that we have enough dollars in most of them. The other thing, you'll see the nicely colored sheet here. We got a question about queue lengths with regard to the current volumes, and so that's what you see on these two sheets here, both at Pleasant Street and High and Elm. So that's that information. I didn't get any comments back on last meeting's minutes, so I guess I'll assume that those are okay. There was some additional information provided by Chief O'Brien, and police weighed in as well on some of that. Kind of the data is a little bit suspect there. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes where the accidents are exactly, but obviously there was some accidents in the area, so take that with a grain of salt, I guess. But certainly there's some things going on. The chief also sent me. I can't remember if he sent that to everyone. I think he just sent it to me that there was a motorcycle accident at Wallace Road. Evidently, the guy didn't see the roundabout or whatever, so he did have some injuries. So I'm not sure exactly how that happened. I want to hopefully talk to somebody about that and see what that was all about. Yeah,
he bumped the curb and fell off his bike.
Yeah. I've actually wondered a little bit if we shouldn't have a little more light at that intersection, to be honest. It's one of the things I've thought about ever since I've been driving through it. Maybe we could use another light there, but that's another story. One of the other things that I'd like to talk about, hopefully you all got Collis's information on the one-way option. One of the things that we did in preparation for last meeting, and that didn't come up, the one-way option didn't come up a whole lot at all. We had actually looked at that one-way option in terms of traffic a little bit. Obviously, it's a bit out of our scope, but we have a lot of the numbers running in models and things like that. So one of the things we did is to just take and run stop control with that one-way option at High and Elm Street, using the volumes that we have. And what we found is that at High Street, people coming down the hill, they would all have to turn right. The stop control actually works at a reasonable level of service. I think we got a level C on that, which was pretty good.
What do you mean by stop control?
Just stop signs,
okay.
Just like it is now. So anyone coming down the hill, would still do what they're doing, except they'd all have to turn right.
Okay.
Because all the traffic is going to the west. Then the other thing we did was we looked at the Elm Street intersection. We found that does not work with stop control. The volumes are so heavy, even with the two-lane option, that there's not enough gaps there. Those people would still be at level of service F, which is failure. There's almost, I think it's 400 cars there, Brian, close to coming out there, so it's quite a heavy volume. Seeing that the stop sign didn't work, what we did was we actually said, well, okay, keep the two lanes going this direction. What if you put a traffic signal there? That actually works. Actually got a level of service C on that with a traffic signal. So you could run it with just the one signal, and you'd get a level of service C, it's acceptable. So we did not run the rest of the route, trying to see if there's any other issues there. If you'd want to go in that direction, it would take a little bit more study to figure out what the traffic numbers would be, and put them into the software that we have and try to figure it out a little bit. Brian and I were even talking today about, well, what if you did like 3 lanes through there? so that you get 2 lanes. You basically sign it and say, okay, well, I'll have 2 lanes going through, because the DOT, the old DOT option had 3 lanes through there, obviously in both directions, but there was 3 lanes there. What it does, it takes out some parking, obviously. Not sure exactly if you could maintain parking on one side of the street with something like that, but it's not something we looked at. It's just something we were talking about today, and whether or not that would work. If you could get some room there to allow people to get into the traffic flow, I think you could probably do it. It does neck down quite a bit, though. I was looking at it tonight when I came down the hill and just sat there and looked a little bit, and I'm not sure you could get 3 lanes through there.
I'm just trying to visualize it. You have the traffic signal for Elm Street, but there would not be one for High Street. They still would come down and turn right?
Yeah, you just leave them go. Actually, it would be if you were able to give these guys a traffic signal. There's not that many cars coming down High Street.
Right.
It would actually create a gap, because of the signal. You always have some all red time, some yellow time, and so forth. So when you stop traffic here to let these guys out, there'd be a little gap. Those few of them could sneak out. And then when you stop traffic here and let these guys get going, there'd be a little gap. It should still work with the stop sign control there. And but again, kind of goes against what the select board and the public wanted back in the day, where they did not want to have signals down there. But again, in that particular case, you'd have the one signal here for this movement and another signal here for this movement. That's all you're talking about. But there may be some other issues with that. I have copies here of if you want to talk about that some more, I have copies here of what Carl sent out. So anyway, I'm going to let you guys go where you want to go, but I do want to touch on one other thing. And Dave asked for this, and I held on to this to pass it out to kind of explain it as I give it out. Actually, why don't you take one of these two, Megan? Hold on to one, and then just pass those around the table. This is a summary of the numbers. The finances, as it were, the funding. What we did was I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's available, what is in the STIP, which is the Statewide Transportation Improvement Plan, and program, I think it actually stands for. The numbers you see here, the number one is the amount available is $819,000. That's what's currently in the program, okay? And the town share of that is 45%, so it's a pretty simple calculation. What you see below that is something that I pulled directly out of the STIP. That's online. And you see the PRC. They've broken it out. I'm not sure exactly how that got arrived at, but you see those numbers are in thousands. So, for instance, under P, that's basically an engineering cost of $33,000 is the federal share. State share is $0. Other, that's the town in this case, $27,000, $61,000. I'm not sure exactly how they broke this up, but it is what it is. It's not really critical that they broke it up in the way that they did. But the bottom line is, as you can see at the bottom there, is 451, 369, 819. Those are the numbers. Our design cost is number 3, is 152.5. That's a little more than people expected, and I won't go into all the details about that. But there was, when the numbers were being developed, estimates were made, and basically 10% of this or 10% of that, and so it didn't quite cover what we needed to do. And so bottom line is the amount remaining right now, and this is assuming we spend all this. We haven't spent anywhere close to that at this point because we're just in the first part of it. That 152 includes geotechnical work, survey, things like that, and we may or may not do all of that or some of that or whatever. So, but anyway, at this point, the amount remaining beyond our cost is 666.5. Okay, now, just for information's sake, number 4 was the original breakout that was included in the request for the funding that went to the CMAQ committee, as it were. which was monitored by Ray Burton, as I remember, executive counselor, and that's how they choose the projects and so forth. Goffstown got extra points for 45%. Generally, it's an 80-20 match. You get, I forget what it was, something for like every 5% more, you get points for that. So it made this project number 2. But you could see the breakout there was 533.4 and 277.9 was the 2 projects independently. Number 5 is a little bit of, yeah, go ahead.
Could I just comment,
Yeah, go ahead.
to fill in a little tidbit of history? The reason the town offered to do the 45 is we had off-site improvement money from the planning board and the developer that was doing the development that impacted the Pleasant Street intersection. So, though what the town decided to do was use that $150,000, which hasn't materialized yet. But if that project ever gets built, that money is going to be paid up front, so the town will recoup that money. And that is why the town kind of put on the table that we would fund more. As Megan just pointed out, though, if we go with an option that costs gobs of money, we've kind of backed ourselves into a corner where we're going to be on the hook for more gobs of money.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've stated here in number 5. I tried to give you a little bit of information there, but I'm going to maybe expound on it a little bit. We've done a number of these projects. Some of them have been right on budget, actually under budget. Others have had issues that come up. We had a bridge on the one project. They turned out it cost a lot more because of utility issues, things like that. DOT was able to find some money, and that money came from other funding sources or other projects even that did not go forward for whatever reason, and they moved money around and were able to use that to fund the projects. That's not always the case. One of the things that's critical, and I stated that here just so you can walk away with something and have an idea of what I said, one of the things that's critical, and it's even more critical right now because of the way the funding is, and there's no new gas tax. That took away the $45 license registration fee. The STIP has to be financially constrained, and so that means if you take money from something else, if you want money from whatever source, it has to come from something else, and it has to be revenue neutral. So you don't change the STIP, change the overall STIP. You can't just say, well, we're going to find $100,000 and put it into this. It doesn't work that way. Now, down the road, who's to say? If a new gas tax is passed at some point, 2 years from now, a year from now, 3 years from now, whatever it might be, there could be money available. But that's not the case right now, and you can't really bank on that. Unknown at this point. So that's one of the things. If you want to go, you want to get more money, they do have a way to change it. You've still got to go through, depending on the type of change that it is and the amount, you may have to go through what's called a STIP amendment. There's actually 3 categories of changes. There's an amendment, and I have it here somewhere.
Amendment, revision, and then...
Yeah, there's 2 others. It's like there's one's like a very minor change, there's one in the middle, and then there's an amendment. An amendment, can be all kinds of different things that trigger an amendment. In that case, the worst case, as it were, you may have to wait at least 3 months, and it could be longer than that. Generally, there's going to be a delay of probably up to 6 months, even if the money is available, because they don't modify that STIP, every week. It's generally on a quarterly basis, and then there's a lot of paperwork to go through, and then they make the change. But again, money has to come from somewhere else. So I just wanted to. I've given you the website there so you can see it. That's on the DOT website, and you can read about it. Just as I did. There's actually a nice little thing there about what happens to amend the STIP. How that STIP revision, as it's called. So that's something that one of the things I'd like to say to you about this all is, and Bob Hudson was on vacation, so I haven't been able to get in touch with him. I actually had tried him before, but he's the DOT liaison on this project. So I wanted to get some additional clarification. I did not get that. If I do, I'll send out an email to give you a little more information. The fact that there's two projects involved here, two separate locations, makes it a little more complicated. But it's not that complicated. We kind of know that we're going to do something at Pleasant Street. It's a roundabout, a signal, or something, or some modification to the existing. The other one is a little more difficult. I don't know that you're locked into, for instance, the breakout that was here before. There was 533 for this one. There's 277 for this one. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that can be played with to some extent. Now, if you go and say, okay, we're going to spend all the money in one location, that gets a little dicey, I think. But if you say, a number of people have said, wow, we need to do something at this location, at least to decide to go forward with some direction, give the town some direction about what do we want to do here. We can't just go and do the one intersection and do nothing here. I think if you were to go in some direction here, I think the idea would be that you say, okay, we think that these are options that need to be looked at in some more extensive way, and come up with a real cost, and then try to, maybe you can go after the money or whatever, but you're still going to go forward with something at Pleasant Street, and maybe that works out. But no guarantees there. I'm just speculating a little bit, but based on what I know about the process and how it generally goes, there's some room to maneuver here, I think, and it's just a question of how far outside, get to coloring outside the lines that you go. Depends on where you're going to end up. Okay? So, with that, that's all I have to present. But we have all the information that we had, before. We have, Brian can pull up anything that you want to look at on the screen. My suggestion would be, well, let me say one more thing. The idea is to go to a public meeting. The ultimate goal is to go before the select board and say, here's what we think you should do, and then the select board decides. Before that, there's going to be a public meeting to let the general public come in and hear, in a Reader's Digest version, what you folks have all heard up till now. But one of the things that ideally, you guys would decide tonight that our preferred alternative is X, and we want to do X, and X is this, and it's something at Pleasant, something at High and Elm. That'd be probably the best thing to do. But you don't have to do that. You could maybe secondarily say, look, there's no support within the group for alternative Y. So why should we go forward with that? There's no reason to really, get the public upset about it or even thinking about it or whatever. That's something you can decide to do as well. Say, hey, none of us believe in this. We don't think we should do this at all. So you can go down that route as well. So we need to, when we go to the public meeting, again, I don't have time, and the public doesn't want to sit through all of the time that you folks have spent here. And, I can't explain everything to them about, you guys have got the, basically the novel. Those people are going to get the short story of, the alternatives and so forth. So, that's where you want to try to get to tonight, and, hopefully we can help you do that. But I'm kind of, I guess I'm going to sit down and kind of let you guys talk a little bit and see where you want to go. So I would suggest maybe starting with this intersection, but it's entirely up to you. Okay?
Personally, I'll start.
Okay.
Personally, I'd rather start with Pleasant Street
Okay.
intersection. I think that's the easier one. I think that's the low-hanging fruit. I think we can focus on that, decide which way we want to go with that, and then move on to the other one. I think at the end of the last meeting, through emails and whatnot, I think it was pretty much a consensus that the group thought that the major focus should be on high and L. That's where the biggest problem is, that's where all accidents are, that's where the longest queues are.
I disagree.
I do
Go
too.
ahead. I didn't feel a consensus at all about
I
that.
mean, consensus isn't the right word, but certainly there was a lot of talk about it. That, you know, that's where the accidents are, that's where the long queues are, that's where the conflicting traffic movements are. And I'm not saying we shouldn't look at Pleasant Street, and I think there's something we can do at Pleasant Street. You know, I voiced my opinion last meeting that I think the roundabout is my preferred alternative at Elm Street. I'd modify that now to say that I think an oval about maybe is better for there, because I don't think there's a whole lot wrong with what's there right now. I mean, you've got that cut through there that is a mess that needs to be corrected, and I think maybe with some minor modifications, we can create a roundabout that's oval shaped that preserves that inner green space, which really is part of the community. I mean, between the sandwich boards there, the messages on House, and the police reader board, a lot of people get their information from what they see in that little. I think that's kind of a neat aspect of our community, and if we can address the pedestrian safety issue, in other words, that crosswalk being too close to the crest of the hill by St. Lawrence's, and move it back and incorporate it into the oval and smooth out those traffic movements around the oval, maybe there's a way cut the cost there, create some improvements there so that we improve the traffic flows through a roundabout of sorts, and then move on to I&L and deal with that. But I mean, I'll throw that out there just to start the conversation, because we got to get down to work. We've got to start throwing ideas around so we can move forward.
I keep coming back to what we're trying to accomplish with either of these intersections, and logic would say, well, we're trying to make traffic move better. The CMAQ aspect of it would say we're trying to improve air quality by making traffic move faster than it already is, which I would interpret to mean reduce queue length, since I would assume a sitting vehicle is polluting the air more than that same vehicle
That's correct.
moving through. And also pedestrian safety and overall traffic safety is a goal. We don't have any data that we can hang our hat on that's been given to us by the fire department or the police department about the safety aspect of these intersections. We've got a raw number of how many times the fire department responded to High Street and Elm Street, a raw number of how many times the police department responded to an even larger area than High and Elm. Their numbers include, by their own admission, parking lot incidences. So the number is useless. And the same goes for Pleasant Street. We don't have any data there to say, yeah, look at this is an unsafe intersection. So the only hard data we have is this right here, which says here's what the existing conditions are. And it's the queue length is what we're being given, and that's kind of the major factor that I think we look at as to whether an intersection is currently working, how it's working, and whether any of these alternatives improve it. And if you look at the queue lengths and the existing conditions on either Pleasant Street or High Street intersections, there isn't a single alternative of all these on the matrices that improves that. It all makes it worse. By far, the current conditions have a shorter queue length than anything proposed here. So I'm stuck as to what to grasp onto and go to the public and say, this is why we want to spend X number of thousands of dollars on this intersection, because we're going to make the traffic worse than it is now. It doesn't work for me. Pleasant Street, you've got money coming from this from this contractor if that project ever gets built. And I suppose regardless of what's done on Pleasant Street, even if just the no-build option, which is improve what's there, I would assume we would still receive that money from that contractor, should that ever happen. So something certainly could be done, again, in my opinion, in that roundabout to improve the functionality of what it is, but it doesn't take anything really major to do it, because anything really major just really makes it worse in one place and makes it easier on Pleasant Street maybe, but when you got 170 cars backed up down North Mast or South Mast in the afternoon, I would say that's not an improvement. And the issues with High Street are even worse, and the side effects of any of the alternatives proposed, other than some version of a no-build, are unpalatable. By recommendation of our engineer at the last meeting, the best alternative from his point of view for High Street and Elm Street is to move the library. Well, that may be, and it may work really well, but it isn't anything we're going to be able to accomplish with $800,000 or whatever the total amount is. So I'm at a loss for how to go forward with any of these alternatives other than some form of improving what's already there with comparatively minor tweaks.
I do have a question about the queue lengths on the roundabout options of Pleasant Street. In the bottom section, Route 114 going southbound through, right, left, and is it saying that there's going to be a 92 vehicle for people going southbound? Would it be the opposite, that we'd be going northbound or westbound?
Yes. That's wrong, I think, Brian, right?
Westbound.
Should be northbound, southbound. I think the northbound and the southbound ones are flipped.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was trying to figure it out. I'm like, okay,
No,
I'm not seeing
definitely,
that. Okay.
definitely a mistake there. It's just
they
a
just
typo
flipped.
backwards.
Okay.
It's 92 queuing northbound.
92 Q, yeah, and the one directly above it should be southbound.
Yeah.
Right, Brian? I mean, that's what I'm looking at. He's got the numbers. I'm sure that's got to be right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just a typo. We've got the north and the south backwards.
92 vehicles queuing back towards the Wallace Road.
Right, and again, I take these numbers with a grain of salt, honestly. I mean, I guess what bugs me about that is we have played with the software to try to understand what in the heck is going on. And with the way this has changed over the intervening time since we ran these numbers originally, the perception is that Americans drive roundabouts very slowly. and so for lack of a better term, the fudge factors that are used in this software, what they're telling us, and this is again, I'm not trying to dodge it here, but we are running something that is a generally accepted program, and there's definitely, I've been trying to read up on this a little bit even more since the last meeting, and there's definitely some within the industry, within the engineers that do this kind of stuff, there's definitely some argument about how this software is replicating what happens in the field. And the bottom line is, I don't believe that it's going to be anywhere close to 92. Is it going to be 30 or 40 vehicles? That's possible. Just based on, and that's just based on what I see in the PM at Wallace Road, and then comparing that to the volumes coming out of Wallace Road in the PM. Because you got basically the same situation on Pleasant. I mean, you got cars entering traffic, and it's those left turners that are causing people that want to be on 114. They're going to block those guys because they have the right of way. And if there's not many cars, coming from the west, as it were, these guys have gaps to get out there pretty easily from Pleasant Street. So they come out, they make the left turn. It's yield on entry, so they must yield to the person that's in the roundabout. So that is going to cause some backup, just like it does on Wallace Road. I mean, you'll see there's a 15-car queue or so in the evening on Wallace Road coming from Manchester. So I think you're going to see something similar at this roundabout. Now, as time goes on and more people keep coming, more people keep living out to the west here, that queue is going to increase. So the way people drive roundabouts in the States is different than how they drive them in Britain and France. They're a lot more aggressive over there, and so the factors are different. So, the numbers are what they are in the software, and I'd like to say that we have enough. We don't have a lot of data to calibrate. We did the one calibration on Wallace, and we got something that worked one way, and we tried it another way, and it kind of conflicted with what we got, and you could adjust it again, and it knocks it down some, but it doesn't. There's still going to be a good queue there, no question about it, because you're, as I said, the one meeting, you are giving time to those people coming out of Pleasant Street. They can get out now, and they can't do that, currently. So,
But
not as
it's
easily.
only 15 or 16 vehicles on Pleasant Street that are waiting to get out. It's not a major. I look at this.
Yeah,
I'm thinking,
well,
it's not a big issue.
The queue isn't right. The queue isn't, so.
One thing to understand also, relative to the 92 or whatever number it may be, that's a rolling queue as compared to a stopped queue, which you'd experience with a signalized intersection there. You're going to get different emissions or air quality numbers from those two intersections, roundabout versus an intersection. And in reading through the application and knowing the process, that is part and parcel of what has to result from these improvements. We have to have an improved air quality emissions, Michael, correct?
It's part of it, yeah. I mean, it doesn't. I think from the reading I've done on the CMAQ grants and what they're for, I mean, air quality is one of the criteria, but you can go and do something that, for instance, you could put the signal in here, and that would not kill you as far as this grant is concerned, because a roundabout has less emissions at a signal because it's a rolling queue or whatever. Yeah. We are in a non-attainment zone, I think, for ozone, I think it is here. They figure that in. If you had it, there's other projects that would have a much more profound impact on air quality than this one or these two. So that's not going to hurt us in terms of, we would still be able to go forward.
And so a couple of thoughts I want to share. If you compare this intersection, this area to Wallace Road, the through volumes will be similar. There are some residences, there are some businesses in between here and Wallace that will introduce traffic, but it's not going to be a significant amount such that the through volume here will be that much different than Wallace. So I would envision that this would work as Wallace does. So that's what I would, as a reality check, that's what I would compare it against. And push aside the 92 vehicles versus whatever vehicles the modeling is showing. That's the reality check from my perspective. Pleasant Street in the afternoon, Brian, compared to Wallace in the afternoon, that gives you that conflicting, that third leg, if you will. I would expect, I don't know, I'd look for you to confirm, I would expect that Wallace would be a little higher, to be honest with you. So that would help you through movements through this point. Some observations and perspectives here. As I look at this, what MJ's identified here as the no build, it's going to mimic what we have out there today. But there are elements that you can improve upon because Mike and Brian did a good job of identifying all the issues and the challenges that we have at Pleasant. And I think that we could improve upon those with this. But I think that we could probably do that with softer, or I should say, with a different avenue if we wanted to go this route here, with some town forces, putting in curb and narrowing up the pavements out there and achieve this if we wanted to. Then that may free up money that we can use more effectively at High Street and Elm. if we as a committee feel that this is the way we want to go. Just improve what we have out here and try to address the issues that we have in front of us. It's one option. Can you go to the roundabout here? Can you go to the intersection? I mean, the signalized, because from my perspective, and as one of the main tenet that we had here is something that fits within the culture and the nature of Goffstown. And I don't think anybody here would say that this signalized intersection fits with Goffstown. So I would dismiss this one out of hand, knowing that that was our thrust, or our parameter, as we are looking for alternatives. This just doesn't fit.
That is part of the purpose and need.
Okay.
Maintain the heritage and character of the village in Goffstown.
So you're really down to one or two, 1.5 options. You know, the no build, which is, I think, there could be some soft improvements, or the roundabout. I feel that the roundabouts we have in Goffstown have been effective. The one in Grassmere has been effective. It solved the problems there. And I think Wallace Road roundabout has solved the issues there, because the people that are traveling on 114 are people that are driving through our town. And Wallace Road, it allowed those folks that are coming, from the school or accessing the school to have reduced wait times. So I think it's effective at Wallace Road.
Let me add one thing to that, Dave.
Yeah.
One thing I haven't said before about Wallace Road. But there is a fair amount of cut-through traffic in the PM. People use that, and I remember before the roundabout was in there, that was a long queue. I mean, there was 20 vehicles there easily.
Where location?
At Wallace Road, coming down the hill on Wallace Road, and those people now are able to get out, and then they, of course, back up people coming from Manchester who didn't have to back up before.
And so I'm just trying to, my perspective, show the effectiveness of these from my perspective. The other thing that's key here, and someone else mentioned this at either the last or the prior meeting, was that the solution that we bring forward or recommend will be addressing really a 2-hour window in the afternoon. That in the mornings the volumes are reduced, so I don't know that we feel or see those significant delays and congestion there. It's really probably a 2-hour window in the afternoon. That's what this solution is or improvement is going to be addressing. My recommendation will be for this roundabout at Pleasant Street. I think it gives a nice entrance to the downtown part of the city, that town. Gives an opportunity for some landscaping and some monumentation in the center of that, so to speak. So that would be my recommendation here, to utilize the fund that we have here. And then we did have some good discussion. A couple of us stuck around at the last meeting. We talked about what are the solutions at High and Elm. And I don't think we have a solution at High and Elm like we have here at Pleasant Street. We talked about one way through town heading north, and then a splitting traffic heading south and bringing it down Depot or Church. There's some alternatives there, but that's a much bigger process, a project. You're probably talking buying right away. You're widening roads. It's much larger effort than I feel what this is scoped out as, and I think it would need more study and discussion. To be honest with you, to find that right solution. I agree with Larry. Moving the library is not an option. I mean, from a historical, from a cost, from a impact of the town, I don't think that's an option. And most of these options will have impacts to that library property. So I guess my point is we don't have a solution there, even though we know that High and Elm has the bigger problem.
Right. Have you ever seen where we have the data we now have, where obviously that High Street, Elm Street is a much harder problem to solve than I think any of us guessed it would be? Do you think there'd be support for using the money, the CMAQ money, to do minimal safety improvements, but also further study and design of alternatives to really try to get a solution. But Dave's right. You start talking, and that sketch came around showing, coming, extending Kendall Hadley through. Just the property right purchases and the easements and the wetlands impacts. I mean, that's a huge project.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not a bad one, because we have that other study, the drainage problem there that we're trying to figure out how to solve at the same time. So we have kind of overlapping problems in that same area that, as a town, maybe we do want to roll up our shirts so we can really dig into that. From the state's perspective in all this, I think the DOT's interest is we got to solve the traffic problems. It's not going to get better on its own. 10, 15, 20 years from now, it's only going to be worse. Everybody sitting on this table probably wishes that back in '67 they took a really better hard look at the bypass option back then, because now that's not even on the table. And 20 years from now, what we're looking at today probably will be trying to accomplish. So,
I mean, I can comment on that, just my opinion, and you can chime in as well, Dave, because you used to be in that part of the world. But Dave's in turnpikes now, so he doesn't get to deal with some of these little things like he used to. I've been thinking about what could you do or what should you do, because I live here too, and my sense is, I mean, this is in the urban compact, so it's kind of not DOT's issue, which is not to say that they couldn't help in trying to solve the problem, because I think you could go and look for, and again, I don't even know if the CMAQ thing is part of the current federal highway program, and they've been changing the way that the monies are distributed and the programs that are available and so forth. But for my money, one of the things that we did was we looked at that traffic calming option, and we poked at it and saw that it wasn't going to work that well for large vehicles. You could go in there and do traversable islands, some serious crosswalk delineation, whatever, to make it more pedestrian friendly, albeit it would not be as safe as a raised island would be, as safe as bumping out the curbs as far as you could, that passenger vehicles could get around, but a truck can't get around. But you would still be able to improve the safety of pedestrians down in that area. I mean, Brian and I were looking at a really wild video from Britain that Rob Mack, who's the traffic engineer from Concord, sent us. And in that video, they had an intersection in there that had large trucks going through. I mean, it was similar to something like this, where unbelievable that vehicles, long queues, double lanes coming in, and basically it was all controlled by a traffic signal. And what they did was they just blew all that away and put in what was the wording? They called
Shared space.
Shared space. It was almost like totally undefined. I mean, they put these pavers down, and basically the vehicles would just come in there and they would find their way through. And there was basically little dots on the ground, like a mini roundabout almost, in a different kind of block. And the vehicles were finding their way through. It was quite, I don't know, it was almost unnerving to look at it. I mean, you were like, wow, how does this work? And both of us were like, well, this would never fly in the United States, but it was working. They had some serious discussions about even going forward with the thing before they went and did it. So what struck me, though, and the reason I brought that up, is that the pedestrians were intermingling with the vehicles, because the pedestrian walkways and things were different colors and different blocks, and as a driver, you knew you were on alert coming into this thing, but you could see where the pedestrians were supposed to be going. And so it made you aware of that, and so you stayed out of it. So I thought, well, okay, if we're looking for an interim solution, we could do something like that here, where we make darn sure that everything's defined a little better, and the vehicles are still moving the same way, there are stop signs and so forth, but maybe we shorten up the crosswalks by, having some kind of a, you're almost using like a roundabout type of treatment where you have a lip or something so that passenger vehicles know that they're not really supposed to be on this cobble area or painted area or whatever you want to call it, some kind of definition. Shorten up your crosswalks, put some islands in there that are traversable by large vehicles, but still give a pedestrian a place to stand and be seen, as it were. I think you could do that, and then I think it would be, and this is where I don't know the answer for sure, I think it would be on the town to push forward a little, take what we have here and build on it in terms of a study to say, okay, how do we solve this in total? And for the next, 25 to 50 years in Goffstown, what should this look like? How do we take care of this? Because we know the traffic will keep coming. I think once you did that, then you would have the ability to say, okay, now how can we get funding for this? And whether it comes, earmarks are a dirty word in Washington these days, but there's still some stuff out there like that. I mean, there's ways to find funding for something like this because it's an important issue. I mean, there's some pretty large municipally managed projects out there. Nashua has one. There's some of the other. Manchester's done some. I mean, and we did the Kelly Street Bridge over here, and that project was a municipally managed project done by the city, and there was money found by the congressional delegation to pay a lot of Manchester's 20% of that project. They just worked at it, asked for it, and got it. And that was close to $1 million. How did they do that? So I think though you'd have to have something in place to say, look, we've studied this, we've spent our own money to look at this, and now here's where we'd like to go, and then you start beating the drum to try to find it. Yes, Collins.
I guess I wanted to kind of follow on Carl's point. And that is, the sketch that was sent around wasn't intended to mean that we could do that under this CMAQ project. I don't think the money's
Sure.
there to do it. But it was to stimulate thought because it's going to take a big solution to fix this. And maybe what we ought to be looking at is some small, as Carl suggested, I think, if I heard him correctly, was some small temporary fixes in that intersection, and then using some of the money to further study what's going to be the ultimate big solution. Because there's a lot going on in town right now, and if you look at our potential opportunity to acquire some properties in that area, if we're looking at a taking, maybe we can do some land swaps. And if we're affecting a fire station, we're looking at new fire stations. Maybe we move the fire station onto one of those other lots. I mean, so there's an opportunity to do some long-range planning with an eye towards traffic circulation improvements, plus reconfiguring and giving a whole new look to that sort of area of town. And so if there's an opportunity to split the money up, say we lose a little piece for doing some temporary fixes that will address pedestrian safety, some traffic calming, some right now upfront fixes, and use a big chunk of it to look at studies and to try and come up with what I think is going to need to be a big solution to a big problem.
Yeah. See, that's where you'd have to ask DOT the question.
Well, and again, I don't want to put Dave on the spot, but is that the kind of discussion that we could go in and sit down with and talk about that kind of thing as an amendment to the project, or is that just so far outside the scope of the normal way that if you would approach something like this, that it's not even a feasible thing to look at. Because the other thing that we have that ties into this, but not directly, is in CIP, right currently, sits in next year's CIP, is like $240,000 to look at redesigning North Mass and Main Street. And when we did the village planning effort a few years ago, the whole idea was we want the downtown to feel cohesive. So if we're going to take 114 and Main Street and look at redesigning, and we have money to do that, and we have this other option, we have these properties on the table, and we have downward drainage issue that has to be solved, it's like we got a lot of issues right in that little spot that we really need to kind of step back and say, all right, how do we put it all together and do it once?
Another unknown here, at least to me, is if this ends up being done, some version of this at Pleasant Street, what effect is that going to have on the High and Elm Street intersections? It's certainly going to have an effect in the afternoon, because this is, with any kind of queue length, it's going to create breaks of traffic on Main Street, which is going to make it a lot easier for Elm and High to enter into 114 without doing anything there.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could say that. Ideally, the roundabout works like they do in Europe.
But if you've got
they
any
just
kind
keep
of
going
any kind of a moving queue, if that's
Yeah.
the right term, that's slowed down traffic, and that is going to create breaks.
theoretically, but the reason they should slow, but if there are that many vehicles, they should continue to pass through. It's not, one of the maybe detriments of a roundabout sometimes is that ideally, if it's working properly, the vehicles just keep moving. They merge and move on. They do slow down because of the deflection, but if there's enough of them, they'll just keep going. Whereas a traffic signal will actually create brakes because the vehicles stop.
But we don't really know what effect that would have on.
I don't. Again, I think if you were to look at, you put that roundabout in 20 years from now, it'll just keep moving. It'll just keep moving. And if there's a vehicle there to go through, it'll go through. I think over time, people are going to learn to drive these things, for lack of a better term, much more aggressively than they do now.
And I think the other thing to look at is, even though it may create gaps right at the roundabout, by the time you get down to High Street, those gaps will probably be collapsed.
Yes,
And,
that's a good
they
point
won't
as
be-
well.
They won't be available for vehicles standing around.
Has anybody noticed the change in traffic at Pleasant Street since the Wallace Road roundabout came in? Does the traffic seem more distributed, or
No, I don't think so.
more groups, or because those two are about the same distance apart?
Well, I noticed it coming out of Mountain Road. If I come out of Mountain Road and turn left,
Yeah.
and there'll be traffic coming, and there might be 10 cars, and then there's a break, and I can pull out. So I don't know if that's created by the roundabout
Is
or
that different
what.
than what it was before?
Is that in the morning there or the afternoon time?
That'll be in the afternoon. As I come down in the morning, there's no traffic. You know, at 5:30, 5:30, 6 o'clock, go right through.
I think
So-
one thing with regards to Pleasant Street, we really haven't talked about it, which was really mentioned at the public meeting, was the Union Streets. And that, I believe that's where the accident was, right after our meeting last week. There was an accident right at Pleasant Street, and I thought it was at Union Streets. But one thing I've really been looking at is that sight distance coming eastbound, and that, once that survey is done, I think that when that retaining wall was put in front of French and Rising for the sidewalk, that helped the sight distance. And I really think that cutting back that slope, if it's within the town's right of way, will really help for the sidewalks. I'm not a big fan of those parking spaces, even though I'm sure the church would like them, because I know that they're there for the weekends and they might be that, but anybody could use them at any time, and because of the angle that they are, somebody's trying to back up, that's a stop right there. And, the 4 spaces, I'm not sure, that, I don't like that idea. The whole point is to get people through, but I think that Wallace Road has slowed down traffic, and I think this will slow down traffic. I think once you get into the village, you're still slowed down, and I think the problem is when they get to Elm and High is that people are thinking, now I really want to get going. So therefore, one of the big things there is it's so wide open with regards to especially Sully's. Close that in. That's really a big problem, because we're all used to going in and out, or we're coming around that corner and we're seeing, okay, where are the parking spaces and where do I want to go in or come out? And there's just so many different ways to look that you're not really looking at those sidewalks that we could, if we. I'm representing Main Street. We don't want to. I said we don't want any more parking spaces, but we want parking. But I'm also a big fan of slowing the traffic down, and I think it's really pretty slow, except at North Mast in both directions. And I feel bad for those people because they're still really part of the village, and anything we could get to slow the traffic down. I did like the idea of policies of using our existing streets, which is where a lot of Nashua is doing it right now, one-way streets, in that even if it was just White Street, Church Street, and Mass Street, if that in of itself was a roundabout right now. I was on the master plan, I don't know when it was. That was the traffic committees. They got shot down big time. I think when we had our traffic committee for the village, we always seem to go back and look at that, but it really is, if you're coming down Mass Road, North Mass, and you have to make a right on White Street, you're slowing down. And I don't know if that might be an option, as opposed to a taking, which
Well, yeah, there were 2 options there.
Right.
If it's one way, then you're going to have 2 lanes moving.
right, yeah.
So, you'll have the people who want to break off and go in other directions, and people who want to keep going straight through. But again, I think that's a bigger project than we can
It is
accomplish
much bigger.
with this money.
Right.
And
But I think we need to be thinking that way, so that whatever we do for the temporary fixes at Elm and High will
Right.
fit with that when it comes time.
But I also, from a business perspective, think you're going to be pushing business right out of town. Because if you're coming from where, you're not going to go all the way around and go back to Sully's. You're just not going to cross over from Church Street, to get back out. If you go one way, it's going to take the people right through town, around it. They're going to lose a lot of business.
You don't think most people come there and stop in the evening?
No.
See, I would disagree with that because I think that's what happens.
No, I think they're going to stop at Market Basket now.
Well, it's
You know,
what's the
I
point
think
in
they're
spending
not
our
gonna
time
touch it.
talking about it? It's not something we can
I know.
do within the purview of money that we have.
But I would agree with Cynthia, Sully's is a big need. We need to do something about controlling what goes on there, because that's a mess.
Yeah.
Safety. Well, safety, and even the long crosswalks. I think of the crosswalk from Rotary Park that angles across to the library. I think, boy, if you just swung that so it went at a right angle, and if we moved the sidewalks on High Street further up, so that went straight across, we're all kind of going to be walking that same amount.
I think, Cynthia, the issue with that crosswalk crosses Elm, is if you move that back, that moves the stop line back. So now you've got to stop at that crosswalk.
Oh, and then you can't
And you
see.
can't see
You
Main
can't
Street.
see.
Okay.
I thought you were talking about the crosswalk across High Street.
That one too.
Yeah, that one's terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you're coming down High,
Yeah.
you've got to come all the way up across, you've got to come across the crosswalk
Right.
if you want any chance at all of getting out of it. Boy, you get dirty looks from the pedestrians, but you don't have any choice.
Right, right. Well, but how many times I'm sure we've all done it, I'll go in between the cars then. I don't need that wheelchair ramp yet, so.
I think that's an area
Yeah.
where we can skinny up the pavement, adjust the crosswalks. And
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, what I was saying before is maybe you do something like what you see at Wallace Road on the one, I'm trying to think, there's
Sidewalk
the
on one
south
Yeah.
Yeah.
east corner there where we have the truck apron on the outside. I mean, you would have the crosswalk come across that thing, but since it's, obviously you couldn't have it cobbles where people are walking, but you could provide something there that's raised a little bit, has the little lip on it, just like a roundabout, and then, makes it so that passenger cars, normal vehicles would stay outside of that area. And it would give you some refuge, make you feel a little bit, although, when you're out there, you're not going to be up on a 6-inch curb,
Right.
which in reality isn't all that much protection either when you look at the issues there. But it is, like I say, if you can delineate things a lot better, you do get some protection from that. I shouldn't say use the word protection. You do get, it makes drivers more aware of what that area is for, and that somebody might be in it, and hey, you got to pay more attention here.
Yeah, but like right now, that sidewalk's going right through the middle of the intersection. And if on High Street, if it went straight across, and then on North Mast, if it was moved further down, if something could be done at Sully's, then you're not having a pedestrian island in the middle of a major intersection that's really kind of tough to get out. And again, that's whether it's part of the calming thing. I think that I do think that the pedestrians will probably go where those crosswalks are. I've noticed that at Wallace Road, that everybody is now staying on the north side of the road, where before they were walking everywhere, and now it's like it's not a big deal. You cross, and it's only one crosswalk, and it really works great.
Mm-hmm.
So even the high school, it's like amazing.
So where are we going with this?
That's a good question.
But if we could either vote, or we could just go around and say what we think of first one intersection, and we could all go through the second intersection. Do you have that big piece of white paper?
We can keep that.
I have my piece of it.
Big piece of white paper,
We can keep track. So who wants to start?
What intersection is that? This one or Pleasant Street?
You're going to do both at the same time.
Good
It's
sense.
20 past 8, it's approaching my bedtime.
Pleasant Street?
Pleasant Street, okay.
Well, I'll start. I would say at Pleasant Street, my inclination would be either a roundabout or tweaking of what's already there with improved signage, move the crosswalk, reset the curbing, just make it a clearer process than it is now,
Wouldn't that be the same as the no build, or?
pretty much. And for the High Street, Elm Street, I don't see a good alternative other than what you have here for traffic calming, and I'm not sure that all of that would accomplish what we want to accomplish, but I think of all the alternatives that we've got on paper here, that's the one that I would lean towards.
I would go on Pleasant Street. I like the roundabout. And I do agree with what Cynthia said about those parking places. And I really think that they're used more for convenience than anything else of the parishioners who want to get out faster. I do think, because there's only, 4 or 5 cars that can park there. There's plenty of room in the church parking lot for them to park there. They might take them a few minutes longer to get out, but there is room there for them. And at High Street, I agree with Larry, with what he said.
Okay. At Pleasant Street, I like the no-build, which is basically take what we got, make some tweaks to it. I think it's a nice feature to the community. I think it fits well. I think it keeps traffic moving a lot. I think we'd be making a big mistake to count on the money coming from the Bog Road development. That thing was approved 8 years ago. They come in for 3 or 4 extensions before the planning board. I mean, to count on that money at all, I think would be a big mistake. If it does happen, well, then maybe we come back and we revisit, maybe make some future tweaks to what's going on here. But I do like this. I think it fits with the character of the neighborhood. I think we can make some changes to the crosswalks as it's shown, so we don't have that hazardous situation with the crosswalk right at the crest of the hill. So I'm in favor of this one. As far as Elm and High, I think we do the best that we can to make some adjustments now, some traffic calming now, and we pursue the possibility of setting aside some of those monies to do a long-range study of the downtown area, looking towards a bigger vision, if that's doable with DOT. I guess we have to ask that question of DOT. But, you know, to throw all of the money at construction that really isn't going to make a whole lot of change in our lives in the downtown area and the safety and the traffic flow through there, I think is not money well spent. Let's spend a little bit of money there. Let's spend a good chunk of it on a long-range study plan for that whole area.
Oh, I have to make a decision? I don't know. I like the roundabout, but I have a lot of concerns with it, with people cutting through on Union Street. I have a lot of concerns with keeping up with the integrity of the town. So I think the no-build probably for now is our best solution. Let's spruce it up. Let's move the crosswalk. And just protect, you know, the pedestrians as much as we can. As far as downtown, there isn't a clear cut. I mean, the roundabouts, there's not room for them anyway. I thought that was already decided, you know, a couple of years ago. So I don't really know a clear-cut one, but I do know that we need to address the crosswalks, especially the three-way crosswalk is extremely dangerous that we have right now. People go and stand in the middle of the road and cars are coming every which way. And we don't know which way the pedestrians, you know, wants to turn. Does it want to go to Sully's? Does it want to go to the library? That has to be thought out. But I think we need more study and more information on that before we can go further on that.
I like the roundabout, and I do like the no-build for Pleasant Street, but I like the roundabout because I do think in the long run, the turning radius from South Mast to Pleasant Street seems to be of a larger radius than what's on the no-build. I think that circle is a little bit too small for as traffic's coming in. I think that could be, and that's all. I think that's always been a tough thing for at least certainly the Wallace roundabout. But on Mountain Road, I like what was done on the no-build because it's a tighter neck where on at least the roundabout sketch that we had, it seemed to have been opened up a little bit. I just like that tightness of that neck because naturally that you're already slowing down because of that turn coming into Pleasant on Mast Road. I'm still real concerned about East Union Street and the buses, but I think that the roundabout option gives the buses a better turn to get out to be going east or southbound in that little section. So I think that's an easier thing for the buses. And I do think I'd like to see it extended, money if it could be, to go down and drop for sight distance in there so that anybody coming down Mast or even from West Union can have better sight distance. For the library,
Cynthia, I'm sorry, you mean adjusting the grades on the road that were retaining
no,
walls?
not necessarily the grades on the road, because I think that's a little bit tough. But there's like a little hump, like
Shave the hump.
The grassy,
Grassy knoll.
yeah.
The grassy knoll.
Just the grassy knoll. If you try to look up above it, you can't see the crosswalk as it is now. So your eyes hitting that. But if that was cut away and dropped,
Yeah.
you'd be able to,
Yeah,
you'd
I know
have
you're
that
talking,
line of
yeah.
sight. So, but if it's on our land, so that's my.
And in conjunction with moving that crosswalk up further, would
And
make a
definitely
huge
move the
difference.
crosswalk as well. I think.
Talking on the right as you come up the hill, yeah.
Yeah, I think the people on West Union and on East Union, they were pretty vocal, and I really feel for them in that area. I don't know if on the southwest side, if we need to have a sidewalk there as well. I don't know if we could just direct like we did on Wallace Road and have, I'm not sure. I don't know how much pedestrian traffic, because on Mountain, you only have the sidewalk on the east side, so, but, that would affect Carr Court. I don't know if from Carr Court, you could just come over and cross Pleasant Street. And again, for pedestrian safety, the less sidewalks. Elm and High Street, I think move the sidewalks as they now exist. I did like the mini roundabouts. I thought if we were going to do something, it did kind of slow the traffic down, but I think at a minimum, fix the sidewalks and organize Sully's. I guess that would be the way to do it. And would have to be a joint venture with them, but I would think as a right of way, do we have the right to do that?
We have the right to limit access there, yeah. My understanding is that John still owns the building.
He owns the land.
Yeah. So, and I know the conversations he and I have had, he was very supportive of working with us on something. So
Yeah.
I would think we could work something out.
So I in the long run for the High Street, Elm Street, I'm a big fan of starting to go with some one-way streets in that whole area, which is a further study, and it would be really shocking, But I do think in the long run it would really work, because we've seen it work in Keene, it's working in Nashua, it's worked in Manchester, so.
I noted earlier at the Pleasant Street intersection, my recommendation would be for the roundabout. I think that would give us the best level of service at that location. It would address congestion through there and meet the impetus of this grant that we have received. So that'd be my recommendation there. I have some concerns relative to the no build. In the evening, again, peak traffic volumes, you've got heading northbound, you've got the heavy traffic going through town, and you have, Brian shows almost 220 vehicles turning left to go to New Boston. With this no build alternative, you'll get a couple cars in there or a third car, and then you're going to be blocking that through volume and then creating or perpetuating that congestion that would exist. So that's one of the concerns I have here. I don't know that I don't feel this will solve that problem. It may perpetuate the problem here. So that's my biggest concern about the no build. Obviously, the signalized intersection is a non-starter, and that's why I was left with the roundabout at this location. It doesn't, from my perspective, it doesn't have any faults. It moves traffic. It gives equal opportunity to all of the movements through here, and get my recommendation for the Pleasant Street intersection. High and Elm with Main Street with 114. I believe we can do something to the High and Elm. And can you pull up the traffic calming concept that showed some of the, yeah, and you can zoom into the High Street. So I think we can, for reduced money, you can do something, say with a High Street leg that would improve it from a pedestrian perspective and a movement perspective there. Provide some channelization and make things better from that signal, from that leg's perspective. The Elm side is quite a challenge, and I don't know that I have any solutions there. given the configuration and the volumes and the movements there, especially in close proximity to High Street. But there may be something, some other traffic calming elements on the Elm side. I do also concur that we need to think outside the box here from, one-way streets or overhauling in a big picture of the downtown of Goffstown. I think it could change the culture, the setting of Goffstown. And make this a large loop here. And so, again, supporting the thought that we utilize some of this funding for further studies in a bigger picture, in a bigger project. I think that would be, again, a big impact on the town. From a business standpoint, you may have business on both sides of that loop and give you a common setting, a central setting. So I think it could have an impact on the culture of the town of Goffstown, I think. But that's a long-term, long-range type of a scenario there. So that's my perspective.
Let me just ask, what kind of scope, if we went through this as the discussion's going on, okay, now we're going to do the big picture. What kind of scope would we be looking at to get our hands around these further alternatives? We'd have to do some deed work, some survey work. I guess what I'm wondering is, when we go up to have the conversation with DOT about further work, is part of that conversation an amendment to the current scope so that we do the further work now while we're kind of at it?
The additional study?
Yeah.
No, that's what I was anticipating.
Yeah, I mean, instead of...
I think you can ask the question. I'm not sure what the answer would be, is where I'm at. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Dave, but
No, I'm not wearing my DOT hat here. It's because it's not my expertise. This is the local planning.
I know it's Nancy Mayville's group, and I'm not.
This is a
little
little
bit.
Misdirect anybody here, so
Yeah.
that's why I'm holding.
Well, yeah, I was only asking if you might have run into something like this, but I know that you haven't been in the local municipal managed part of it, but
It wouldn't take much time or effort to ask the question and get a reaction.
no, for sure.
It'd depend how you'd sell it. I mean,
Right.
it depends how you sell it. I mean, if you could explain to them that of all the alternatives we came up with, none of them really are
Right.
air quality improving, we could say that this requires further discussion. And we talked it over. We had all these different scenarios. However, we think that the problem is several orders of magnitude bigger than we think it is. So in order to do this right, perhaps we should, we could always put Band-Aids over it. However, that's going to fix the symptoms. And we'd like to do something that's going to fix the solution because we anticipate much more traffic coming through town years down the road. That's how I'd sell it to them.
Yeah, I'd hang my hat on the congestion mitigation part, not the air quality part, because the thing is we've already determined that the roundabout options, even the mini roundabouts, don't really deal exactly the way we want them to with the congestion mitigation part of the thing. Because, if you're looking at trying to understand the one-way options, do they deal with that? Yeah, maybe they do a little better. So, but we don't know that for sure. And that's where I think you'd have to say, okay, that's definitely a congestion mitigation scenario there.
Well, because that's where I see kind of, we conclude this study, and this study concludes Band-Aid, treat the symptom, it needs further big study,
Right.
where that goes in the future.
Let's use the money for that.
Well, although looking at these options, we're going to chew up a pretty good chunk of the money just finishing the small part. But the other alternative is, instead of the report saying, we can't fix the problem, here's a Band-Aid, it's, let's amend the scope now, do the further work, so that
Right.
we make a recommendation that will fix the big problem.
Right.
I suppose it's the discussion.
Yeah, you have to ask the question. I mean, it's as simple as that. To me, you should be asking the question because, the time and energy that we've all put into this has shown that it's just what we thought it was. It's a tough situation, and we need to do something more than just try to make things a little better for the pedestrians.
I think we should keep going around the table. Let's
Yeah,
keep that
yeah.
right in. That's not.
Yeah, keep going.
I like the no-build option at Pleasant Street. And the High Street, I guess there's only one option right now, and that's traffic calming. The other thing I'd like to see is the speed limit drop to 25 for pedestrian safety. I mean, people fly through town.
At least
I'd
around
like to add that to mine too. I
Mine
think
too.
that's a good point.
I'm pretty sure Main Street already is. I don't know
No.
where the sign is.
30.
You should get one out there. It's 30 miles an hour.
Pretty sure it's 30 everywhere.
Actually, I think they're right. I don't think they did change that one.
No.
They did? It's
No, I
not
don't think
25?
they did.
But couldn't you just put a sign up?
It won't matter.
No.
I think you need to stop some people.
And
They put
that-
a little
I
radar
was
gun
going
out
to say,
there.
if you put, the only way you get people, the sign means nothing, it's
After they stop people.
It's them.
stop
Little
them.
We could raise money for the intersection.
If you got me a radar gun, I could stop
They're
it.
the ones.
I
that
think that's
matter.
it.
I'll do it for you.
Carl, I think we have that on our other project.
Yeah.
But I do think this, and I thought that from the beginning, that the speed limit needs to, in town, it needs to be down, especially too, around that corner, but down by Dixter's, and it's really congested right here.
You could really do it from the Wallace Road roundabout all the way through town.
Well, I'd like,
All the way up to,
The cemetery.
I'd like to say that works.
I'd
but
like to see
that would
that.
make,
But it will work
probably
in
make
town.
a pretty big impact for short
Studies
money.
have shown
To
that-
slow that
Yeah,
traffic
if they're not
coming from
standing on
where
that
and.
crosswalk and
Yeah.
somebody's going 30, and you're deciding
Yeah.
whether they're gonna stop. If they're going 25 around that shop corner.
Trust me,
Slow it to 20.
there's various studies that show that people drive what they feel comfortable with. And so that's why you have things like traffic calming and so forth, that you get people to feel like they can't drive that fast, and then they won't. The only other thing that stops them is enforcement.
And I can tell you, North Mast Road it's a gold mine for us. We're out there constantly, and we write more tickets on North Mast than you can imagine.
But it is 30, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's 30, but it-
It's 30 at the
from
at the
Sully's
cemetery,
up to where
right?
it goes up to 40 is our favorite stretch. And I'll tell you what, we sit there, I could sit there all day and just write ticket after ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like
It hasn't done any good.
We like
People are still,
13
like you
coming
said,
to
they're
town.
still doing it.
Yeah, but it's because of the feel of the road. The houses are far back. I mean, there's no sense of that you're still in town.
When, the concepts we kicked around with North Mass are the same sorts of things downtown Concord looked at, where you alternating parking to make it so it's not a straight shot. We've looked Center Islands, more of the Boulevard approach.
Yep.
There's an incredible amount of right of way there locally, so.
Yeah, because where does it start 66 feet? North Mass is a layout, the whole thing. So, and even an island
Yeah.
would, again, is that
Yeah.
narrowing it down.
narrowing it down.
That's like the dream job, because there's more right of way than we need. That's-
Right.
That never happens.
So we're way off topic.
Okay, let's keep
Okay,
going.
sorry.
Well, I'm in favor of the no build at Pleasant Street, primarily because the roundabout does absolutely nothing for Union Street, east or west. I live on West. I fight that thing multi times a day trying to get out of there, where people are winding up over the hill. So we need to somehow slow the traffic down there. Cutting down the grassy knoll is a definite, because that would give you a lot more sight distance down the hill. The buses are a problem, no question. I sit there and I watch 15 or 20 of them trying to get out of there in the morning.
Usually somebody lets them out and all 15 go out.
Well, when the crossing,
They do.
when the crossing guard is there, okay, but otherwise, you
Yeah,
don't.
but if they stick their nose out, they usually all get out at the same time.
Moving the crosswalk from roughly where it is now up, I don't really see that as an addition. because you've got less sight distance with the people coming up the hill like crazy. Where if you're crossing at the top of the hill, especially cutting the grassy knoll down, you can see all the way to the bridge. So you'll know who's coming and who isn't coming. In the afternoon, I don't think there's a problem left turning to New Boston because there's very little traffic coming out of the village as compared to traffic coming from Wallace and going toward Ware. There doesn't seem to be a backup in that situation at all. Like I say, I've lived there my entire life, so I'm pretty familiar with what's going on in the general area. Elm Street, High Street, one-ways might not be a bad idea to look into. Left turns are the problem, or trying to get straight across coming down High Street. If you turned right most of the time, it would definitely cut down problems. Left turning out of Elm Street, that's a problem almost any time of day.
Can I, before we go, remind people, it's come up a couple of times with the no build and the left turn going to New Boston. I don't know, I haven't done any dimensional analysis. Would it be possible, is there enough room to put in either a stocking left turn lane or a slip lane to go by it? So
They go by pretty good
Yeah,
now.
they do now.
There's almost enough for 2 lanes there so that the New Boston traffic, can have their own lane.
Yeah, I think it's one of those minor modifications we
Yeah.
can do to the pavement to make
Right.
that
Some
better
tweaks.
defined.
Some tweaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's southbound movement in the afternoon.
In the afternoon,
Yeah.
coming out of town, it's like 600 cars.
Heading south into.
Or west,
Sorry.
southwest.
You mean,
Well, heading into Manchester from say where? 600?
It's in the design here. I mean, just to comment on, the reason it's not a problem now is there's so much width there
yeah.
that you can get around. One of the things we tried to do here was to limit that pavement width, because one of the concerns that was brought up is that it's so wide on that
Right.
side that it looks almost like a 2-lane road. It has that same dimension. What we've laid out here is it's 19 feet wide between that, between like the edge of the parking stall, the parallel parking on the east side of the road and the center island. So, 19 feet, there should be enough room to squeeze by somebody. If more than
two
two,
passenger vehicles.
if more than 2 cars, stack up. And, the analysis shows only 2 would.
2 would be,
The 2 left turn movement for northbound traffic.
Right.
Showed the queue length for that is 2 cars.
right, the queue length, yeah, right, 2. Yeah. You'll have, every minute, you'll have 4 vehicles turning left to go to New Boston. So the queue, between the conflicting vehicles heading south or through there, would hold back, in this case, what you're showing is half, 2 of those, half of those. So that, what's the length of that distance? What's the distance between the 2 through movements, Brian?
I don't know.
So every car is 25 feet in essence, so if it's 50, if it's 40, it would probably work.
Yeah, it's around.
I say that my concern is the vehicles backing up in there and having an impact on that through volume. You see it every day.
Yeah, but
that's-
it's not really a problem from my point of view. Simply because the traffic coming out of the village, especially in the afternoon, is not that great. Everybody's going in the other direction. So the people going to New Boston really have a break and they can go.
One thing while we're here, if I may throw out, it's in my mind as we talked about making West Union a one-way, that having them go, in this case, call it westerly, and
You know, it's almost worse at the other end to get out of there than it is at Main Street.
It's a difficult intersection there too, the way it comes in
Yeah.
Pleasant.
I think if you did what Dave suggested, you would have to modify that intersection
Yeah.
to try to bring it
I
out.
think they're talking about making it almost at a right angle.
Right, that's what you
But
need to do.
even so, there's a fence right there. You
Yeah,
can't
you'd
see
have-
anything.
You'd have to cut some things back.
Yeah. Okay, I don't want to steal anyone else's time.
There's one more.
You're up.
In my experience, a good idea is like a good song. You just know it when you hear it. And I don't think that any of the ideas we've come up with in the last couple of weeks have anybody's feet tapping, really. And I think that all the different solutions we have are sort of a zero-sum game. It seems like when we come up with an idea that will let the traffic through a little faster, there's some benefit to that, and then there's also some drawback to that. And I thank you both for all the information, Brian and Mike, that you've given us. But a lot of this stuff is kind of an ethereal idea and supposed to be taken with a grain of salt or not taken with a grain of salt. I don't know. So it comes down to your gut. What do you think is going to be a good idea? I appreciate what people have said about the future traffic coming through this town. I don't think that really should be a factor in what we're doing right now because we don't really have the resources to do anything ambitious. Although I would support studies for that sort of thing, and I would even volunteer to help sell ideas for more studies. However, I don't think that's really in the purview of what we're doing here. We don't really have the money for it. So it comes down to what I think would be a good idea. I think the no-build option is a good idea. I don't think it's really going to make too many people happy to put a roundabout in there because it's like a garden hose. Traffic is like a garden hose. And the roundabout would be a smaller garden hose. And right now we have the maximum flow going through there. And a roundabout really isn't going to let any more flow through there. It might distribute it a little bit better, but it's not going to allow any more flow. So I don't think it's going to make anybody really happy when all is said and done. So with the budget that we have and the short-sighted options that we are kind of stuck with the budget we have, I think that the no-build option makes a lot of sense, and I think that the traffic calming option at the bottom of High Street makes a lot of sense. And I also agree that if we could talk the DOT or whatever powers that be into doing further studies about a future layout for Goffstown that makes sense, I think that's fruitful because all the projections we have about the towns around us growing in the future are dependent on the bottleneck that is Goffstown. And we could say that Ware or New Boston or Washington are going to grow a lot, but they're really not going to if getting to Ware or Boston or those other New Boston requires that you sit in a 92 car traffic jam. You're not going to end up living in Ware or New Boston if you got to get a 92 car traffic jam. You're going to end up living somewhere else. So without a more ambitious plan, we go with the easy, low-hanging fruit. That's it.
So what did you guys hear?
What's the score?
At Pleasant Street, I had 5 for the no build and 3 for the roundabout, with Larry's split between the two.
And I guess
Everybody was-
I would lean more towards the no build, but I'm concerned that it's actually worse than what we have there now in terms of someone trying to make a left into Pleasant Street. If you're coming into town from Manchester and you're going to make a left, there's less room to back up that traffic than there is now. Ray says there isn't really an issue, and maybe it's not, but just looking at the comparison of how the flow would be between the two.
It's wide enough.
It is now.
Now.
But it's not there.
But can't you tweak that a little?
Tweak it, yeah.
Well, let me just, I guess let me comment on a couple of things I heard. One is, and I said this last time, I have some concerns about this one because it's counter to the way roundabouts operate. We put a roundabout in at Wallace, which is yield on entry. This is not yield on entry. Having said that, I think that one of the things we're trying to do here is we're trying to calm traffic down using something that's not a roundabout, but something similar in terms of the closing up the pavement and so forth. So you can't have it both ways, where you want to prevent people from rocketing through there with all the wide pavement and not knowing where to go. If you're going to close it up and make it so that people slow down a little bit, make sure they're in the right place, you're going to give up a little bit of, there might be a time when there's one or two vehicles that are out in the flow there. But as Brian said, we went with a little wider width there to allow people to still bypass. And I guess I would submit to you that in that situation, you may get, for lack of a better term, a timid driver or a driver that isn't as attentive to where he should be in the lane. In other words, he should shy over towards the island, say, to get out of the way of the through traffic. That driver, that's the second or third car in line, he may force somebody to force a queue there because he decides he's not going to keep it over there. So you're going to end up with that kind of a situation from time to time. I think that would be relatively small, the number of times that would happen. The only other thing I'd like to say is that one of the things that I like about roundabouts is the pedestrian factor. It closes up the approaches. You do have the ability to say, hey, people can now walk from Union Street up to the roundabout and cross relatively safely there. So the option we've shown here moves the crosswalk, which I think is a compromise solution, but it is a better solution than having them cross at East Union. And maybe I'll just comment on the slope cutting there. I think the right-of-way line is pretty close to the back of the sidewalk there. So any modifications to the slope, you might be able to negotiate something there.
We'll put the arm on Mr. Lamson.
Yeah.
Though, the poles are pretty, there's a pole that's pretty far back, and that's why I'm wondering if you can, because it's a 50-foot right-of-way through there.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it from
There should be enough room.
That's what I think, even up to the poles, because I use the poles as a benchmark. I can't even believe I just said that. But anyway, I should know better. It's the side property line too while we're at it, so what the heck.
So many feet off the center line.
Yeah. So, look at that.
There we are.
Hey,
It's a grassy knoll.
And a bush.
And
Here, to get the sight distance, I think
Yeah.
you hear people are talking about. You're talking about
Yeah.
taking it out right to the face of the
I was
building.
thinking you might be a bit optimistic on that, but
Then you're impacting the utility pole.
That's the least of it. You start getting near people's.
Not sure.
Undermine it.
What exactly would you see if that wasn't there?
See
You'd be able to see down the hill.
Down the
You'd be able
hill.
to see a
you're
person.
pulling out-
Coming down, yeah, but
Yeah.
going up?
Up the hill, you'd see.
Going up,
You
you
see a
can
person
as well.
standing there,
You
maybe.
have
See
that
a little bit
eyesight
better.
to be able to.
Pretty much right where my cursor is, somebody's probably could be standing waiting for the crosswalk.
Okay.
Okay.
I've actually tried to pull out there a couple times and looked left, and it's a little bit sketchy trying to pull out there without somebody coming up the hill.
When you pull out when you pull out there, and there's nothing coming, and you pull out there, you get straightened out, and you can't see the headlights in your rear view.
Yeah, it's not that easy.
You can see it. You can see it there. I'm telling you, to this location, you can see it, but if you're backed up a lot. It's tough to see. But the house is pretty
Hey,
close.
we were gonna move the library, we just moved the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grassy knoll's no problem, right? You still have grass, just be at a different.
Well, as far as going forward to the next public meeting, which will be open to all the public, as I said, I'm going to give a little presentation. Are there any I mean, I don't have to, again, I got to give the Reader's Digest version of a lot of these options here. Maybe I'll just throw this out on the table, is should we take the library stuff off the table?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Not go there? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
Anybody want to fight for that one?
I don't know if anybody would bring that up, would they ask that as a question? I don't know.
And how does the library feel about that?
Well, we haven't had a chance to talk to the full board about it yet. We are looking at expanding. Expanding will mean that we either make the building much bigger where it is, in which case we would never be able to move it, and it would be far more expensive, or we move it now. I don't know.
So you could go on a capital fund drive over the next 10 years and raise money to move that and put your addition on and solve the intersection problem all at the same time.
It wouldn't cost $5 million. It wouldn't even cost $1 million.
Brian, when you were talking about building moving guy, do you really have a feel for how big that building is? Like, is that a
No,
realm of
if
reality?
we were going to pursue this option, we'd have to get better costs.
That was another building somewhere else.
Yeah, it was a totally different situation.
But you had an idea what it was based on what we're seeing for costs in
Yeah.
Concord.
I mean, a year ago, if you asked me if that building could be moved, I'd say no, because it's brick, it's stone foundation. But from what I've seen recently, it is possible. It just costs money.
And it doesn't involve any utility lines, right?
Right.
I mean,
That's really the big cost of moving
Right.
the building. Is if they have to truck it down a road, you drop power lines,
Oh, yeah.
move traffic signals, and hire cops for 3 days. And that's where it really drives up the cost. The fact of you just dig, jack, slide, and plop down.
It sounds easy.
We can do that in the weekend, right?
Yeah, really.
they have the
It's not that bad.
with the-
It's not that bad. I moved the house before.
Probably
It's not
isn't,
that
but
bad.
it's pretty scary to think about.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the only thing I keep in the back of my mind is if we're going to go through this envisioning what downtown could look like, why would you throw that off the table? I mean, for the purpose of this project, maybe it's off the table, but for the
But I think that's what he's talking about, is what's on the table for the public presentation of
Right.
what we've accomplished. And
I mean, I could say that we looked at it and just kind of gloss right over it and move on. I mean, it is the a couple of roundabout options are part and parcel to that. So
You
Because
could
did that-
explain that one of the limiting factors in the High Street, Helm Street solution is that actually being there. And with that being there, it limits the possibilities. If that weren't there, there are a couple of ways we could go with it to see what happens.
right. Yeah. So just keep it really short and sweet on those.
Yeah.
Is that, well,
I was just going to say, if you focus too much on any of those, people are going to think that's where we're heading. And
Right.
I want your focus to be what this group just came up with. So you say these were looked at, but then spend more of your time, obviously, on the other things.
Not another 30-minute pitch about roundabouts.
We like roundabouts.
We got it. You like it. We
You
got that.
were roundabout before.
You were pro.
No.
I think that, honestly, from a library perspective, we are part of the town, and we need to continue to work with all the community to come up with the best option. There's a lot that we would have to look at. The building is deeded, I believe, to the town, so I think that plays into it. Whether or not we have enough room to expand if the building is new. Parking is continually a problem for us, so, it would not be an easy thing, but we don't want to be an obstruction in making the town a better place to live.
Okay.
Well said.
I've heard just as many tough comments about moving the popcorn stand as well. I think there's been more about even just rolling it someplace else. So between those two, it was like, what are you thinking of there?
If you
our
put
utilities connecting the buttholes,
Ah.
just on wheels.
if you put the word moving in anything, it typically gets people's attention.
Change. Oh my God.
Right. Unless it's the tax rate.
So would the single roundabout on High Street be out as well?
And I don't know if I take any
Yeah, it
off.
sounds like we just.
I think you just, you know,
Keep it
say that
rolling.
the group looked at these options and you know,
what
and
we
you can
came up
show a
with.
picture and just say, you know, don't get alarmed, we're just gonna show you some pictures of
Except
what
for
the
the
group
signal.
reviewed.
You know that'll be on the front page, top of the fold center.
That call for supports this. Triple roundabout to
There'll
the
be
town.
3 flyers.
Library and popcorn stand to be removed. That'll be the headline.
I think that probably the
Hey, it's
shorter
been
and
moved
sweeter
before.
you keep it, the better off you're going to be.
It used to be down your way.
It's sort of like a vulnerability.
Popcorn
We're talking,
stand.
you do it more
Oh,
vulnerable
it's
you
easy
are,
to move.
so don't get it anyway.
I
It
would
was,
like
it was
that.
right at,
It's funny. though,
right at
sometimes
Wallace Road.
I gotta get
Issues almost.
That's where it was.
But
That's terrific.
it's terrific. Yeah, it's a balance.
50,
How much you
60
say
years ago.
till
He wants to know what he
you
should
say
say.
too little, and I think you're holding back on.
He gets paid to figure out.
Gets yourself in trouble. So.
People aren't gonna want all these options. You're gonna have to.
You know what,
Is
I
it
think
issue for-
Is
that
your
we
job
should
to explain what
say
the options are that we looked at, or what the
that
conclusions that we
truly
came to?
solve those intersections
If you stick
are
to the
going to
conclusions we came
involve
to, it could be pretty easy.
the
Yeah,
library,
but you have
the
to give them some
museum,
insight
the
into
houses,
what
the
you're
historical
doing, but it has to
buildings,
be
so that,
relatively
we did
simple.
look at
You
them,
guys
but,
have had,
in as much as
That's
they'll
6
fix the
hours.
traffic, we didn't really feel that we could impact, the buildings or the parcels. I mean,
if that.
even though the library is a public building, we're, you know, we're really respecting that it's a historic structure. You know, if it could be moved or X, Y, Z, but the roundabout of that dog bones really would be quite nice in there. But, you know, townspeople, what do you think? So we're saying we're not going to make that call, like, so that they know there are solutions there. But are you willing to? You have to make a choice. That's the deal with those. What's more important, traffic or the library or the parking?
Yeah, the thing that's distorted of the view, I think, of all the alternatives, at least I think for you and also for me, is that there's too many cars going through town as it is right now. And so any solution you have kind of directs you to, you should have 2 lanes through town in each direction, all the way through town.
Yeah.
If you're trying to move the traffic, that's what it's all about.
Right, the volume of the traffic. Right.
But that's not,
Right.
that doesn't work
Right.
in town. So then you're back to, well, what do we do? You know, so that's where this all kind of breaks down. It's not so much that the options are bad, it's that the whole system is bad, and little spot improvements don't get it done for the whole thing.
But the solution, like the right thing to do, would be an ambitious project, way bigger than what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about here is, dealing with some of the symptoms, trying to
Right.
do something.
I mean,
Well,
realistically, if you want to look at what should Goffstown be 50 years from now, there probably ought to be a light rail system out this way, or something like that. I mean, that's what you're talking about.
A parking ride.
Park and rides, I
Put
mean,
a parking ride right up on 114.
well, that won't solve the whole thing,
No, because people won't park there.
well, some will, but
Not many.
it's a bigger issue than just these particular intersections.
So where are we gonna go from here? You're gonna take the 2 options that the majority settled on, are we gonna meet again after you have a chance to refine those a little bit, or are we going right to a public?
No, we're going right to the public meeting, and what we'll do is, just have I don't want to say short and sweet, but something relatively compact to present. And we will do that, let the public ask questions. We'll also have, as many of you as possible should come, to put your 3 cents in. As it's good for, at a public meeting, to have committee members stand up and say, here's what I thought. I saw, the details, and this is the direction that I think we should go. And that should be part of what the public hears. It shouldn't be just us giving the facts.
I would fully expect that we would all be there.
Right. Well, that's what we have
on
to.
TV.
I don't know, Megan, did you look and see if we were,
Carl and I are both available, the next 2 Tuesdays. Can you check on the website to see if
No, not next week. Sorry.
Well, that's
2
what we're
weeks
trying.
out.
I asked them to
In the
look and see if
third.
you can.
Gives people enough notice.
Yeah.
Hard to tell. Mike?
I guess the question is, where do we have that here? First of all, would we do that at the, like, that room big enough, or do we need to go to the high
Well, I
school
wondered
auditorium?
about
Yeah.
that. Would there
Go to a
be-
big room, give enough lead time, because we don't want to hear the criticisms that we heard with the
Right.
Planapalooza. You're rushing it, you're jamming it down our throats, you're moving too fast,
Right.
you're scheduling in rooms that are too small. We heard all that criticism of that. We don't need to deal with that here.
So if that's the case,
We-
we're trying to go to the high school auditorium.
We are a little bit behind the schedule that we'd set, a long time ago, but, I think we can make some of that up for sure, so. I would rather make sure that we have enough, lead time.
I just wanted to bring us together as a group and make sure we're all in concurrence. Brian noted that as a committee, the consensus was the no build at Pleasant, traffic calming as much as possible at High. Elm, we don't know if there's much, if anything we can do. That we would all recommend exploring, utilizing the funding we have for a more global study in the downtown area that would investigate alternate corridors, one-way streets, and those types of things. That's what, as a committee, we're all on board with, right? That's what I heard.
I would suggest we use a different term than no build, because it's not a no build.
You're right, Collis.
No build, people say nothing's going to change.
That's correct.
Improvement.
You are correct.
Improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can change that.
Yeah,
And Dave, for the record, I think you nailed it.
and if I could give you some guidelines for the public meeting, what I would recommend is that we have easels with foam boards, each of the alternatives being displayed. We have an opportunity for the public to come in at half an hour,
Right,
half an hour
yeah.
before the
Yes.
formal presentation begins.
Sorry,
so they
I
can
should've.
absorb what we've talked about, what we've seen. They can form their own decisions, and then they can have the opportunity to have clear thought. And when they get up and recommend one or not.
Right, well, that's what they would do.
And we should have easels there with scribes as well. So
Yes.
We're making note of comments that we're receiving.
Yeah. Your presentation, Mike, should be no longer than a half an hour, 40 minutes.
I don't even think it'll be that long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other than that, you'll lose them, and I think that by now we should have a clear, crisp presentation to provide to the public, and then you simply state what us as a committee has recommended, and the process. You understand the process, the next steps, and that as well. So then you can open up to public comment. I expect you'll get a lot. I mean, it's either you're a fan or not of the roundabouts, and you'll probably hear a lot about the roundabouts.
I think it's important that these are recommendations of this committee, not as a whole, not that everyone on the committee agrees with
Right.
Sure.
those
That's right.
particular recommendations.
I think a big thing is not one person suggested a light, and I think that when Carl had said last meeting, with the light, there will be traffic stopped every minute. And for me, that was like, I don't want a light, because for the 2 times a day that we have a problem, I don't want there to be stopped traffic at any point in the rest of the day. Because I think people are going to really wonder, well, just put a light in, like, somebody
That's
who
the
sees
automatic answer. Just put a light in. That's what everybody says when you talk about
And
that.
so we did, I think we all did, and we didn't really talk about it, but we all threw it out, but then therefore why? And for me, it's like, because, 80% of the time, there'll be stopped traffic when there doesn't need to be any stopped traffic. So I really like, I think that should be made a point, so that they know why we didn't go there.
Coupled with the fact that one of our goals was to maintain the character of the community.
Right.
It's out of character.
And it's nice to have a little bit of parking downtown and not make it a...
Well, just about that, I've been to lots of towns that have stoplights in the middle of them that are pretty nice. There are a lot of towns in Massachusetts that are, Salem, and a lot of towns in the coast like Newburyport. They have lights downtown and they're pretty nice. So, I think everybody's picturing a big yellow light and an ugly pole. There are different variations of lights, just for your edification.
And Nashua now, they're putting those reflective things around them, so that, never mind you have the lights, but now we've got the reflective bands around. Plus they're up like that. I'm like, okay, my headlights are down here.
I'm not a fan.
So, can we do, I mean, what do we think then? If we got to go to the high school, what's the issues with using the high school? Who do you need to call, or?
I'm just thinking it should probably need to be 3 weeks out instead of 2 weeks out.
Okay.
Because sometimes it takes a school a couple days to figure out it, right? And last time we called them, it was like taking a while to figure out if the auditorium was available for us.
Oh, is the school in session?
They were in session. It was, remember, the last meeting we tried to have, and then we just
Yeah, 3 weeks they're
scrapped
not,
it.
so,
We won't have
I
it
mean,
in.
chances are it'll be fine, but we're gonna have to check with them tomorrow.
So that would be July 30th, Tuesday, July 30th. Then that gives us enough time to, otherwise we could do the week before. It's just, that's not a ton of time. I don't know what the deadline is to get in the paper. I don't know if it's, we know it's Tuesday, right, get it in the paper.
Just FYI too, I emailed while we were talking, our project manager at DOT and just asked him to set up a meeting. So if it's 3 weeks out, we maybe have a chance to go up and sit down and have a chat, so we can
Yeah,
answer the
just don't make it
question.
4 weeks out, because I won't be here on that Tuesday.
I won't be here on 3 weeks out. I'm on vacation.
On the 30th.
Yep.
We could Skype you in.
Yeah.
That's on your phone, Larry.
Yeah. I'll be right there, believe me. I might be a little intoxicated. Sunburn.
Even better.
Yeah.
So the 23rd would definitely be okay.
You're right.
I think the serious talking is done.
Probably be better if it was all worked out.
Yeah, that
You could
might
just
be
share your
good.
drug.
Come up with some great ideas.